coming this evening. We did a little closed session first, so we started the meeting at 6:30, so the regular start is not regular. But thank you for being here this evening. It's a little chilly out there, but it's nice to see the room filled, and it's nice to see lots of children here. We will begin with the mission statement. The mission of School District 15 is to produce world-class learners by building a connected learning community. We're going to start with the pledge. Dr. Hines?
Tonight it is my pleasure to welcome Lincoln School that will be helping lead the pledge and talking about one of their special programs.
Good evening and happy holidays, Board President Chupai, Board of Education, Dr. Hines, audience members. My name is Mary Beth Kneppel, and I'm the principal of Lincoln School in Palatine. And besides doing the pledge, we're also here to talk about Latino Family Literacy Program. It has been in place at Lincoln School for many years, and I'd like to introduce Mrs. Ali Lepe, a bilingual resource teacher at Lincoln School, to explain a little bit more about the program.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for having us here. It is truly an honor to be here and share with you about our Latino Literacy Night program. Our purpose of the program is to invite our families to come and for us to spread the love with them about literacy. This is a 6-week program, and we meet once a week. And when we come together, we just get our night going just by having authentic homemade food and just having casual conversations. We then send the kids to go with another bilingual teacher to work on literacy activities, and we stay with the parents to read every single night a different story, which the kids will get to share with you about. And the stories just really give room for the parents to share, make connections to their culture. And along with that, we also do a literacy activity with the parents that we really encourage for the parents to bring back home and put in practice with the kids. We also get to make a scrapbook where the parents get to put all of their memories, pictures. They create a family tree that they get to take home at the end of the program. Ultimately, the wonderful thing about the Latino Literacy Night program is that we are able to make stronger relationships between home and school and just embrace the culture. So it is just a lovely program. Okay, now we are going to let some of our students share their favorite books.
Hi, my name is Anthony Nunez, and I'm in grade 4, and I'm in Lincoln School, and this is my favorite book because sometimes I help my sister, and sometimes she helps me.
Hello, my name is Camila Nunez, and I'm in 5th grade, and my favorite book is Family Stories, and one of the stories in this book is a new language because it reminds me of when I had to learn English and it was really hard for me, and now that I'm older, I can speak 2 languages, which is Spanish and English.
Hi, my name is Christopher Sedano, and my favorite book is The Shark That Teach Me English because I'm getting memories when my dad taught me English, and it's a really good book because it's colorful and has good pictures.
Hi, my name is Anna, and my last name is Felix. I'm in 5th grade. The name of my book is The Shark That Taught Me English. I choose this book because when I was in 1st grade, I didn't know much English. So I had a friend that taught me English, and so she was like the shark for me.
Hola, mi nombre es Naya Carmona. Mi libro favorito es La Lonchería. Me gusta porque mi papá trabajaba en una tienda y aquí trabajaron en una tienda.
This is her favorite book because it reminds her of her dad, because her dad used to work at a store, and the story is about a family that owns a cafe.
Hola, mi nombre es Jasmine Cruz y estoy en cuarto grado. Este libro, Un Nuevo Sol, es porque tiene sueños y yo también tengo sueños.
She picked this as her favorite book because the book is about having dreams, and she also has dreams.
Thank you. And now please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming tonight. You did a wonderful job. Yes, thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Introduce our next.
Yep. So next up, we are going to have our dual language students from both Jane Addams and Winston Campus Elementary Schools. And we're very excited to have you here today. Thanks for coming.
Okay, good evening, President Shupai, Dr. Hines, and members of the Board of Education. Today, my name first of all is Angelica Brifcani. I'm the TwoWay Dual Language Coordinator, and we have with us today just a glimpse of a little into the TwoWay Dual Language program for you. We have students here with us tonight from Jane Addams and Winston Campus, which are our two sites for hosting the dual language program, TwoWay. So this evening, they're going to be sharing with you a short presentation, just a quick song. But we also have with them today also their building administrators and parents. So we thank you so much for your support and your continued apoyo. So for this evening, we're going to go ahead and get started with our short presentation of the song in English and Spanish, just to highlight some of the language acquisition they have attained. All right, are we ready? ¿Listos?
¿Cómo está usted? Estoy muy feliz de verlo a usted. Salude su vecino, un para abajo. De un tope y de la vuelta. Hola amigos, ¿cómo está usted? Estoy muy feliz de verlo a usted. Salude su vecino, un para abajo, hace un tope y de la vuelta. Hola friends, how are you? I'm very happy to see you. We're neighbors, looking all around. They stop and turn around.
Great job, boys and girls. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Can we take another picture? Do you mind? part? Which one? You're on that one. Up there so we can see you. And you too, come on. Can you see her? Everybody smile. Moms and dads and grandmas and grandpas keep smiling. Ready? Ready.
All right, we're moving. We will now open our meeting to public comment. Please remember that this is not a dialogue between you and the board. If you have a specific issue that requires a response, Dr. Hines will get back to you. Please state your name and identify any group that you represent. Limit your remarks to no more than 5 minutes. If somebody has previously articulated something with which you agree, please state that you agree rather than reiterating the entire comment. And finally, avoid comments specific to any person, student, or staff member, respecting that person's right to privacy. Do we have anybody that, wow,
I didn't see any.
nothing. So if anybody would like to speak, you can turn in a green form or you can just come on up. You're welcome to. Going once, going twice. All right, moving on. Dr. Hines, would you like to speak?
Sure.
Great.
I'm just going to highlight a few of the things that I included in my memo. December has been, since our last meeting, it's been another busy month here in the district. I'll highlight a few things from each area that I'm particularly excited about. Relative to our curriculum, we've been working very hard and having meetings by department relative to the development of our multi-tiered system of support. It's been a very collaborative process so far. Why MTSS is so important is that it makes sure that we have a very strong and robust core curriculum, which is what every child has access to, as well as more supports as needed based on academic discrepancy from peers. So that's that tier 2, tier 3 support. So we really are through the work and the direction we outlined within our strategic plan. Our goal is to fully flesh out a multi-tiered system of support that will bring a robust curriculum to everyone and supports to those that need it most. We continue to meet as a building team relative to the facility work. We had a very productive meeting with members of STR, our architects, a few members of our boundary task force, and some members of the Board of Education and Administration. So we continue to fine-tune what we're going to be bringing to the board in January. We'll give an update at a later time today, and I want to make sure that we're on the right path in terms of where we're heading. And certainly, Lisa and Frank, you can share at any point your thoughts on that meeting and what your take is in terms of where you'd like us to head. We have completed the second round of CSBO interviews. I will have a third round next week and hopefully a candidate for January. So that's been a really rigorous process. As you can see from my written report, I've done a lot of community outreach and we've been meeting with different groups. We had a community partner luncheon, we had our parents as partner group, where we continue to update the community on what it is we're doing relative to the work in math. We gave them beyond math, because this is a group that's not just focused on math, talked about some of our facility work, the feasibility study, and we received some great feedback. Mike has been, and Corey have attended a few meetings with Motorola as well as the Village of Palatine relative to TIF, and we'll be talking to you about that in greater detail at a later time. And I would say lastly, our principals and assistant principals participated in their second round of Pam Rosa training that focused on learning engagement, student discourse, making sure teachers have clarity, they know how to seek feedback, and that they have the right cues and question format that they're using with students during instruction. So that's been very exciting to see, and again, the feedback from our administrators relative to their work with Pam Rosa has been overwhelmingly positive. And that's it for me.
All right, thank you very much. Would you like to make any comments on the? Yes.
Well, I think we're gonna be into that later.
All right.
So we'll just wait till then.
We'll talk to them.
Okay.
All right.
Mike, you're up for the update in
Yep.
terms of the Village of Schaumburg and Algonquin and the Motorola corridor.
I apologize, I didn't bring my laptop with me. So there was a meeting that Dr. Hines and I and Corey went to with regarding the Motorola, the TIF for the Village of Schaumburg at the old Motorola property. They will start that. There's actually about 2 phases in that. There's a phase that's commercial, and there's also a phase that's residential. In my write-up, there are about, I think, 200, as I recall, 265 townhomes and about 550 apartment buildings. We get impact fees from the developer on the residential properties. About $265,000 worth of impact fees we'll see coming to the district. As the board is aware, when we do our budget presentations, those we deposit into Fund 6, our Capital Projects Fund. And then we should see about, again, 265 townhomes. Estimate on the townhomes, the number of students coming out of that. The Village of Schaumburg had 3 different companies that did projections on it. So additional students anywhere from about 50 to 70. And those are all, I believe, in the Thomas Jefferson attendance area.
I think it was
Hunting
Ridge.
Hunting Ridge, I'm sorry, Hunting Ridge. So breaking ground on that probably within about in early 20 or 21. Should start seeing some of those students come in 2022 under the TIF agreement. Any students that the district receives as a result of that TIF agreement, the Village of Schaumburg is responsible to reimburse us for the cost of those students. So they have a set aside for District 15, District 211, and the District 54 students. So once we don't think, again, but with about 54 to 70 students coming into our district, that won't it's more students for us, and I know all of our buildings are at capacity. It won't be horrendous on us. We should be able to we'll be able to fit them within our existing facilities, but it will be something that we have to accommodate in the future.
And it will certainly inform as we continue to work with STR and about capacity and feasibility, and if we're gonna do any, renovations, boundary shifts, whatnot. This is just another data point that we have to make sure that we plan for.
So there were 3 different estimates as far as students coming in. One of them was in the 60s, I think, one in the 70s, one in the 90s. Is that right?
It was like 104.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Do you guys have any idea what differed about those 3 different studies with the? I mean, it's really close. It's not that big of a difference.
I would say it's probably almost like a small, medium, low. I mean, we do have demographic studies, and a lot of times the demographers will have a most likely, a least likely. They'll have, again, small, medium, low. It's most likely, least likely, and then one in the middle. And usually when we look at planning, we usually take the one that's in the middle, and hopefully we're pretty close as far as where that comes out at.
One question I have is the reimbursements that we get typically for these TIF districts, are they calculated based on just like an average tuition cost? How is that? Do you have any idea about how that equation is made? Or?
There's a formula I can share with you, because I went on. If you look on the website for the state of Illinois, there's actually a formula. But when I was looking at the formula, they were looking at the formula is based on the old funding formula before EBF.
Okay.
So what I have found has not been updated because of the EBF, the evidence-based funding formula. So I don't know how exactly that is calculated now. And it is usually the case, they pass the legislation, and then on the EBF, and then the implementation part follows. So we do need to get clarification how exactly that's calculated.
It's a good question, Zubir. I have not heard that they have changed that formula in terms of that per pin or student dollar amount. So it would be interesting to see if that's going to shift for districts based on their adequacy target.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much of a dollar amount impact it makes, but something to look at.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, our per capita tuition charge, if you look at our AFR, which is part of our annual financial report, it's calculated every year. We're about $11,000 or $12,000 is our per capita tuition charge. So that figures into that calculation as well, but I also think they look at a percentage of that as well. So I think for planning purposes, around $10,000 to $12,000 per student, we should be pretty close.
Okay.
And that's in addition to the impact fees. So the impact fees are one thing, and then the per capita per student is
Correct. So the impact fees come from the developer, which they're required to pay, and then the student reimbursements would actually come from monies that are generated within the TIF district. That would come from the village.
Now, the breakdown of the townhouses and apartments, how set in stone is that? Because I know early on, they had put just about all the apartments and townhouses in District 15. And now I see that they've been redistributed, so at least half the apartments now are in District
54.
54, right? Even though we have the majority of the townhouses, but is that set, or are they still like?
My understanding is pretty well set. Because if you
Okay.
look at that, if that breakdown, most of the townhomes are in District 15. There's very few that are in District 54.
Right.
And you're right, the apartments
Are about even.
are about
like
even.
450 to 550.
Yeah. I don't think they've had the final plats, and I think that I don't think the final plat's been approved yet, but
This is
my,
pretty much-
our feeling, at least I'll speak for myself, my feeling from that meeting, that's pretty much set. I don't expect
So they're not
much of a
planning
change
on
on
moving around again.
No, we're not gonna get any commercial property that
No.
no. They're gonna continue to keep all of that in 54, and they talked, it's gonna be a Schaumburg, entertainment district. They have some nice plans, for that parcel, but we won't receive any of the commercial dollars, just students.
Which we've already, they've already signed the entertainment district. If you drive by, you can see the big nets up for Top Golf.
It's
So
gonna be
they've already
very
put that
nice.
up. Yeah, very nice, so that's already started.
And they've been very communicative. We asked at that first meeting that I had with the mayors and the village presidents, just to, communicate with us, and we've struck up a really nice partnership. We've been out there a couple times, and they just really are very forthcoming with information, and they know what we're up against in terms of some of our capacity issues, so they want to make sure we have the right information in a timely manner, so it's been very much appreciated.
All right, thanks, Mike. Next, we've got English as a second language and bilingual programming. Renee or Vance? Julie, you just keep changing it up, huh? Gets better every time.
So, good evening, President Shupai, Dr. Hines, and members of the Board of Education. It's really my pleasure to be here with you tonight and share an update on our second language programs in District 15, very sorry. This has really been such a pleasure to get to know our programs in the district. I'm new to District 15, but this is not new work to me. I am very passionate about language and culture, and this has really been my life's work for the last 27 years, honestly, and I'm thrilled to be here. So I have spent the last 6 months since July 1st really immersing myself in our second language programs. I've studied our curriculum. I have reviewed, our resources. I've analyzed our data. I met with each of our building principals in order to learn more about each building. I met with all 147 of the teachers in our department to learn more about each of our classrooms, and I have worked firsthand with many of our students to learn more about each of our learners. So I can say without a moment's hesitation that there are many great things happening in our district for learners. We have outstanding administrators, educators, families, community members, all very actively engaged in doing the work of helping our students reach their full potential. So I'm really excited to share a little bit more with you about our programs tonight. And I'd like to start by just acknowledging our strategic plan and the place that our second language department has within it. In some districts, our second language departments and our ESL and bilingual programs are seen as very separate. And that couldn't be further from the case in District 15. We see ourselves as very integrated. Our non-ESL students and our ESL students are one and the same, and they're integrated into every single component of the strategic plan. So when we look at our commitment to our students, you'll notice that there are words like language domains and guaranteed and viable curriculum. And you'll see the parts of our program that we're currently working on in cooperation with all of the departments in our district. Of special note would be that K2 Spanish literacy. So we know that we've recently implemented Fontes and Pinnell classroom in our general education classrooms, and we're looking to do the exact same thing for our 43 bilingual classrooms, who are for our students who are learning to read in Spanish. So that's some of the work that's to come for us. We share a strong commitment for professional development and soliciting staff voice and attracting and retaining highly qualified teachers. To say that it is hard to find bilingual teachers is an understatement, I mean, quite honestly. So we're working very hard to do just that. And one of the exciting initiatives that we'd like to share, hopefully at the next board meeting, is that we'd like to grow our own specialists within the district, grow our own expertise. And so we're looking to provide a reading endorsement program paid for with our grant funds so that we can have 16 new bilingual reading specialists in our district to meet the needs of our students. So we're really excited about that. In terms of financial stewardship, our state and federal governments recognize that extra funding is needed to meet the needs truly of our English learners. So we're provided with that, and we hold ourselves accountable for practicing financial stewardship and, of course, meeting all the expectations set by GATA. In regards to our results and our commitment to results, we are wholeheartedly engaged in that with our district as well. So before we move forward and talk a little bit more about our program specifically, it's really important for all of us to have a common understanding of what language development is. So we're going to spend a little bit of time just talking through that and try to think of language as a glass window. Right? For those people who have high levels of literacy, are very fluent in the language, the glass is clear. Everyone can see through, the content is very accessible. But if you notice the fish in the bowl, the fish doesn't recognize the water in which it swims. So there's actually a little bit of what we call a knowledge curse, right? When you are fluent in the language, it's hard for you to imagine the world without that knowledge. Right? And so as teachers, we really have to do that. And that's something that our English language teachers brings as expertise to the table. When you're an English learner, however, the glass of that window is frosted, right? You have to have language supports to be able to see through it. So comprehensible input is really the universal pathway to all language acquisition. So we have a video for you of one of our bilingual Japanese teachers. This is Yuko Nakagawa, and she'll be sharing a sample of a kindergarten lesson for you. So, I went too fast. The bottom. How do I play the video? Play video. Yep.
おはようございます。これから、形の勉強をします。まずは丸。三角、四角、長四角を勉強します。さて、これから色を塗ります。丸はピンク、三角はオレンジ、長四角は黄色で、そして四角は緑で塗りましょう。そして塗り終わったものは紙にのりで貼り付けて、きれいに仕上げてください。そして名前を書いて先生に渡してください。それが今日やることです。
So you'll notice that that was a lesson that had no language supports, but it was a kindergarten lesson with very basic content. But we'll look at that same lesson. And when you look at that lesson, it might have felt like it took a long time, right? That was 43 seconds. And we have to remember that our English learners sit in our classrooms for 6.5 hours a day. So if you don't have access to the content and to the language and have that special expertise and that lens brought out, school can be very difficult and very challenging for you. But let's look at the same lesson again now with language supports in place.
おはようございます。今日は形について勉強します。これから形を紹介します。こちらが丸です。これは三角です。こちらは四角または長方形と言います。こちらは長四角または長方形と言います。今日はこれらの形に色を塗っていきます。よく見ててくださいね。丸はピンクで色を塗ります。ピンクになりました。普通の紙にグルースティックを使って貼っていきます。まずはこちら丸を塗って貼ります。次に三角を貼ります。このように貼っていきます。名前が書き終わったら、こちらお道具箱の中に仕上がったものを入れてください。このように仕上がったものを入れて、今日はおしまいです。
So that was a lesson that included language supports. And when we talk with our teachers and we say, how many language supports do you think were present in that lesson? Many of our teachers will say 4, 5, 6, 7. There were actually 20 different language supports that that teacher utilized in delivering that lesson. And you can see some of those supports listed here. Things from as simple as smiling. It is a language support, right? It engages our learners to cognates. How many of you had your ears perk up when you heard the word orange and pink, right? And glue stick, right? So those things are really important to our learners, our English learners. And we know that research shows that when you have sensory, graphic, and interactive supports in your lessons, comprehension can increase by up to 72%. And that's not just for English learners, that's for all learners. And if you think back to the lesson that we just observed, going from lesson number 1 to lesson number 2, you might agree that your comprehension increased by 72%. We also want to be mindful of the fact that there's something called social language and academic language. Social language is acquired very quickly, right? So many times people might think, oh, he speaks English, he doesn't need help. Social language is like the language of the playground, right? Kids can master that pretty quickly in about 2 years, pretty proficiently. Academic language, however, takes much longer. If you look at the iceberg, what's below the water level is the academic language, and that can take kids from 5 to 10 years to master. So our English language development teachers are language specialists. We consider ourselves language architects. We look at language at the word, sentence, and discourse level for our students, and that benefits all of our learners. So who are the English learners in District 200, or District 15, I am so sorry. District 15. The state gives us very clear criteria as to who is an English learner and who is not. We're not allowed to just pick students and say, oh, we believe they should be. There are assessments that are given by the state and required, and then we look at how our students score on that assessment. So they can be anywhere from a 1, 2, 3, and something below a 4.7, and they qualify for services. Those are considered our direct serve ESL students. Once they reach that 4.8 composite proficiency, so that's a combination of reading, writing, speaking, and listening in English, now they are considered monitor students, in which case they leave our program. We no longer provide support to those students, but we monitor their progress to make sure they continue to be successful. So in District 15, we have 3,249 direct serve students. Okay? We also have 117 who are pre-K. You'll see that the bulk of those students are really in grades K1, 2, and 3. In our monitor program, we have 546 students. So that's just under 4,000 English learners in our district. And you'll notice that the bulk of those students are really at our 6th, 7th grade levels. We have now reached 80 different languages in our district, with the top 4 being Spanish, Japanese, Polish, and Telugu. We have the 13th largest program for English learners in the state of Illinois. Number 8 would be Carpentersville, who is nearby. Number 11 is Wheeling, and number 14 is Schaumburg, our neighbor. So we are definitely joined by good company in our area. So why do bilingual programs exist? Right? We actually have a very significant legal history. When we look at some of the cases, one that stands out the most is Lau versus Nichols. And so that's where a group of Chinese American parents in California challenged the school board all the way up to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court unanimously agreed that these students' rights have been violated because they did not have equal access to education based on the Civil Rights Act of 1964. So our programs are legally mandated. They are not optional. Okay. The letter of the law in Illinois says that our local education agencies must design and implement services and programs that support our English learners in attaining English proficiency. Our highest goal is always for our kids to learn English, but at the same time to access high quality content instruction. Okay. The spirit of the law is, we know, bilingualism is a gift, right? It shapes our brains for a lifetime. And it is truly an asset in a knowledge-based economy. And we know that all students benefit from language-rich environments. Research, additionally, is highly supportive of bilingual and ESL programs. As paradoxical as it might sound, students actually learn English faster when you use their native language. Okay? So what programming do we have in District 15? So Morgan Delac, our Chief Communication Officer, helped put together a video so that you can get a glimpse into our classrooms.
We're very fortunate in District 15 to have over 3,000 English learners, and we provide a variety of programming for each learner to meet their different needs. So we have 8 different program models in place. So the first model that is actually our newest model is our TwoWay dual language program.
The composite and dynamic of our class is built of both Spanish native speakers and English native speakers, but it's amazing how their metacognitive and linguistic abilities start to take over, and it's amazing, and the growth is incredible.
We also offer a one-way dual language program that meets the needs of our learners who are native Spanish speakers and also are developing the proficiency still in English.
What is nice about and effective about this program is that it's a structure students to become bilingual, bicultural, and biliterate.
And then we transition kids at the 3rd grade level, and that's the 3rd through 5th grade transitional model. So those kids spend about 50% of their day in Spanish and 50% of their day in English. So we find that most of our students exit our programming around 3rd through 4th grade. And the kids who remain are often kids who have come to us in later years. Our blended classroom model has a teacher who is ESL endorsed. And so that teacher actually has general education students in her class, and then probably has a small group of English learners who have higher levels of proficiency in English. Our bilingual resource teachers typically work in grades 4 through 6, and because we find that's when we've transitioned most of our kids into a general education classroom, but we find at the same time they do still need some extra support in native language. And so those kids will receive science and social studies instruction in Spanish from one of our bilingual resource teachers. We also offer ESL resource, and that's a program that meets the needs of learners from all different languages, and it spans from kindergarten through 6th grade.
So I'm only speaking to them in English only, and I use different strategies to help them acquire the English language.
So our youngest learners are at Conyers Learning Academy, and we have 4 bilingual and ESL teachers there that work to meet their needs. We know we have a number of students that come to us in junior high as brand new arrivals to the country, which presents a lot of challenge because the content is so much more complex at the junior high level. And so for those students, we offer 2 periods a day of English language support and development, and that replaces their English language arts time. And then in addition to that, we provide co-teaching experiences. So when the kids are in, say, science class, there are 2 teachers there, and one teacher is the content expert and the other teacher is our language expert. The second junior high model is for our students who perhaps arrived later to the country in 2nd, 3rd grade, or have been in our programming for a little while but have perhaps one domain of language that keeps them in the program. And so we provide 1 period a day of English language support. So at the junior high level, we offer a Spanish for native speakers class. In addition to that, we have Spanish as a foreign language that starts at the junior high level. So we're really fortunate in District 15 to have such robust programming options for our students so that we can truly meet the needs of our 3,249 English learners.
And in addition, I'll mention that we also offer French at the junior high level for our students to learn another language. Within our programming, we have transitional bilingual education programs. This is where the state says that when you have 20 or more students in the same school that all qualify for services and speak the same language, you have to provide a bilingual program for those students. So in District 15, we have 8 different transitional bilingual programs in Spanish, Japanese, Korean, Telugu, Tamil, Polish, Bulgarian, and Hindi. So that was quite a feat to find teachers to teach all of those programs. Happy to say that we do have really highly qualified staff. In addition to that, we know that we teach the whole child. So we have a number of different community engagement programs in place. We know that research shows that when your families are actively engaged, student achievement increases. Of course, so you got a little glimpse tonight in our programs from our Family Literacy Project all the way to parent ESL classes that we offer as well. We have 5 bilingual parent liaisons, 2 bilingual parent facilitators that are paid for with our grant funds to further engage our families. And we have 2 very active parent advisory councils from our Japanese-speaking community and our Spanish-speaking community. They meet 4 times a year, and the goal is to really empower them to participate actively in their children's education. So we know that every child, educator, family, and community member benefits from District 15's rich diversity. So in answer to the question why, I have another video clip that we'll close with tonight, and this is a university professor from the University of Michigan.
Diversity is talent. I mean, it sounds paradoxical, but I mean, it's a mathematical fact and it's an empirical fact. People who think differently than you actually add a lot of value. How can we use our differences in some way to actually do the things we'd like to do better? The central premise of the book is that when you're dealing with a complex task, that diversity actually is a form of ability, that diversity produces a bonus. So sort of in simple terms, that 1 + 1 can equal 3, but only if the 2 ones are different. That's the bonus. I hang out with scholars of complex systems, physicists, biologists, economists, philosophers, and one of the things that we study and find is that in complex spaces like economies or in the brain or in an ecosystem, that diversity has all these functional properties. It makes systems better. So diversity makes systems more innovative, more robust, more adaptive. It's a good thing. And then when I kind of walk across campus and go hang out with my political science colleagues or my sociology colleagues or my psychology colleagues, diversity is seen through sort of a moral lens. It's seen as diversity inclusion policies are seen as something that, like, is something that's the right thing to do. And it is the right thing to do. I'm not saying it's not the right thing to do. But what's interesting is that that framing, I think, implicitly defines it as somehow costly. Like there's a trade-off between like we can be excellent or we can be diverse. But I'm coming from a place where excellence requires diversity. But when you think about what actually generates diversity bonuses, what makes groups of people better at solving problems, it's differences in how we think. In a knowledge-based economy, we have now 30 years of data showing teams win, teams win, teams win. You know, it's academic research, whether it's investing, even in songwriting, teams beat individuals, and diverse teams beat homogeneous teams.
Thank you so much for your time tonight and for learning more about our progress. Are there any questions before we conclude?
I don't have a question, but I just wanted to say thank you for all of the work that you're doing and to the district. There's communities out there that don't value English language learners as the assets that they are. And so I'm just very thankful for District 15 that we treat it in that way and are investing in those students as assets for our future and not seen as burdens. So thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
And for all your hard work. She is a little dynamo. In just 6 months' time, she has really got both her hands around the department and is just continuing to drive growth and improvement. So thank you so much.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
Mike, you're up.
Good evening again. We normally present these in November, but I know we had a long board meeting last week, or last month, I'm sorry, so it's our...
Don't remind them, Mike.
I won't. It's our semi-annual presentation of our financial forecast. It's our fall. And as the board is well, we review these every June and November, December. So we had a year, we go out to 23-24 fiscal year. The tax levy, and Corey made a presentation last month about that, and there's some items for the board to approve tonight. We assumed $10 million of new growth, beginning with the 2019 levy year, which the board will be asking the board to approve tonight. Our average growth over the last 5 years has been just a little bit north of $14 million. So at $10 million a year, we're probably a little bit conservative. That's okay. We've got $41.1 million worth of new growth in the 2019 levy. We talked about that last month as well, which is the 2021 fiscal year. And that's for the Dundee Road TIF, which is expiring. And we have verified that with the Village of Palatine. And we have 12.9, a small TIF in the 2021 levy year. And that's for the Rand Dundee TIF. There's about 5 TIF districts in the Village of Palatine. And then and then the downtown TIF expires, I think, in the 23-24 school year.
It's the one they're proposing to extend, though.
They're proposing to extend that, so we need to be diligent on that, because that of the 3 TIFs coming off in the next 3 years, that's the largest one, and would provide the most annual operating income to the district. We're going to assume that as we look out to the future, we're assuming an inflation CPI rate of 1.5%. As we look back, what's it been historically? 1.9% in 2018, 2.1% in 2017 and 2016. And then we had some really, really low years in 2015 and 2014 of 0.7 and 0.8 respectively. The Fed sets a target of 2%. We went to that statista.com, 2020, 2.74%. That's really aggressive, I think, but they're really not even hitting 2.25%. For every additional 0.5% increase in CPI, our property tax revenue goes up about $650,000. And then it compounds, so $650,000 in year 1, and then $650,000 in year 2, plus $650,000 for that year, which is then 1.3, so it compounds as we go out. So are we conservative on our tax levy going out to the future? Yes, we are. And we've always been that way. State aid. 16-17 was the first year of EBF, was $15.3 million. You can see what the state did is took 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines of revenue and just condensed it into what we call EBF funding. And debt went up about $800,000 in 17-18 to $16.14 million, $16.5 million in 18-19, and 19-20 about $16.9 million. So it's going up about $400,000 a year. We're at 79% adequacy. We're supposed to get to 100%. The goal of EBF, we've talked about that before, is to get there within 10 years. The state's about $7 billion short, as I recall. I don't think we'll get there in 10 years, but going out in the forecast, I have not increased EBF funding at all over the 16.9. So we're conservative on that too. And we don't get the final numbers until after we adopt the budget. So 18-19 special and private facility was almost $618,000 this year. And we had budgeted for next year, 19-20, $468,000, which was what we had in the prior year. And that's a factor of how much funds are available, how much other districts draw on that fund as well. So we could be a little bit low on that. Orphanages the same way. We got $327,000 last year. We have $120,000 in the current year budget for that. So there could be maybe a couple $100,000 more that we'll realize by the end of the school year. We have textbook replacements in the budget, 19-20 through 22-23 for all of our curricular initiatives. Not sure about 23-24 yet. I've talked to Colleen Mullins on that. That's the $500,000 is really a placeholder. We know we'll have something, but we haven't, working with DOI, we haven't planned out that far yet exactly what those are. So we can see that's 2.58, 19-20, 1.4 million, 2.7, 1.7. But the majority of all of our initiatives should be completed by the 23-24 school year. So it could be higher. We're just again, just a placeholder for that. We assume that our annual health costs will increase 5%. 10-11, the 8-year average, first year that since I've been here. 18-19, it's averaged less than 3%. So again, we brag about this all the time. I think we've done a fantastic. We're self-funded for our health insurance, so I think we've done a fantastic job working with CTC and others to keep those costs below the 5%. So we don't, at least in us, I don't see the reason why we can't continue to enjoy those nice smaller increases going into the future. 1.5% annual increase in supplies, that really just matches way up in CPI, and our CPI increase. An increase in utilities about 2%. So we have our electric and our gas contracts. I think our gases, we're under contract through 2021, and electric, I believe, through 2023. So we do have our commodity prices in place. As we do some of these health life safety initiatives, those should be able to save us money going into the future as well. So I think we're well positioned on utility increases. We continue to plan for annual lane advancement costs of about $200,000, and we can see it was about almost $231,000 in 1920. Attrition $425,000. It was only $182,000 for the current 1920 school year. I put very few leaves of absence that we've had this year. So when we look at attrition, it's how many existing teachers don't return for a variety of reasons, maybe a pregnancy, a health issue, just leave the profession, transfer out of town. Hit that $425,000 number in other years. Again, 1920 was very, very low at $182,000. So we'll see where that goes in the future. The only contract expiring in the near future is TIE, which is at the end of the year. So we'll probably start negotiating with that in the spring, and SEIUs in 2021, estimate 2022, and DQ in 2023.
Mike, is your attrition number, is it inclusive of retirements or is it exclusive of retirements?
That's exclusive of retirements, yeah. So the retirements is a separate line. I think at the end of this school year, there's about 56, 57, 58 teachers that are retiring at the end of the school year.
Gotcha.
Quick question on the minimum wage increase. Is that accounted for in our 5-year?
That will affect ESPA in, I think, 2022. So
Okay.
we're about 2 years out on that.
Okay.
And as I look at nutrition services salaries, there's about 2 people only in that whole group that will affect. We're looking at those salaries right now. So at this point, not a large effect on those groups, but it will affect us in the next couple of years. So as we look at revenues by fund, our actual audited numbers for 2018-19, 163 million. We put all those factors in there, and then we have budgeted revenues for 23-24 of 175 million. Expenditures, $163 million, almost in 18-19. And that'll go up to 172 million. And I should, if we look at the capital projects line, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines down, 7.9 million in 18-19, 6.7 million in 19-20, and that's mostly for projects that were over the summer of 2019. And at this point, we only have $3 million in going out starting in 2021. So we'll look at that in the slide, in the next slide too. And that's been consistent with what we've looked at before, but we've always budgeted more because of all the needs that we've got.
Right.
So as we look at our fund balance, at the end of 23-24 school year, would give us a fund balance of $60 million, or almost 35%. And I know the board's had set up, we don't have an official target, but we looked at a target of about 23 to 25%. So we're above that, which is good. But we also know that we have a lot of needs out there. So when we look at 2021, we have the Jane Addams roof. We have budget 1.567. That came off of our health, life, safety audit, which we'll ask the board to approve tonight. Mary Jordan, that's a partial roof replacement, which we won't have to do depending on what we do with the secure vestibules. So that number will get wrapped in with the secure vestibules. Actually, that's part of the bid documents. About $1.8 million for the univents at Willow Bend, and maybe some of the rooftop units. We're going to put that as an alternate. Those are about 20 to 25 years old too, as well. And we'll see how those bids come in, because those go out to bid in January. We'll bring that to the board in February. So about $5 million in 2021. And then if we want to get all of our outstanding life safety projects done by the 10 years, which is 24-25, we'd have commitments of 36.7, 32, 31, and $28 million over those next 4 years, which obviously we don't have enough money in fund balance to pay for all that. But we do need to be cognizant of that and look at that. Carpet replacement, we do have a plan for that. Kimball Hill, Lake Louise, and Marion Jordan for 2021, and then Willow Bend and Winston Campus in 21-22. We're actually going to go out to bid, and we talked to the finance committee about that. We'll go out to bid for Willow Bend, since we are doing univents, and we'll bid them all up, all the sites out separately. So then we can come to the board and we can kind of pick and choose which ones we want to do. We'll bid out about 5 or 6. We'll see what the bids come in at. We'll see what we can afford, and we'll discuss that more in February. And then 22, 23 through 24, 25 are carpet projects, which is about $3.5 million we have, which is not part of the life safety. Playgrounds, we have a plan for that too. It's about $3.5 million. The only project that we have planned for next year is Cottage Learning Academy. We did a little bit this summer, and the majority of that, well, that's all within the courtyard at CLA, so about $200,000 in playground replacements. And then our proposed summer 2020 projects, secure vestibules, and we talked about that. The base is $900,000. If the board decides to do the expanded scope, that would be 3.7. The health, life, safety is 4.8. That ties back to that prior slide, less than $220,000 for Mary and Jordan. Replace the fascia panels here. Dr. Hines has been asking me to replace because they're so ugly out there.
I got it.
$218,000. Carpeting for $575,000. The playground at CLA for $195,000. We have some paving projects that we're just gonna have to do just because the lots are in such bad shape and we don't want people tripping on them and there's ruts. That's an estimate. I don't know how close that is. We're looking at that, $300,000. The salt bin, we have a salt bin of transportation. The wall is just leaning. And we've got it braced up with steel, and we just have to replace that. And Schaumburg did one about 3 years ago, a little bit more bigger than the one we had. They spent about $100,000, so we may be a bit high.
I was gonna say that's probably a high estimate based on what Tony Rossi presented.
I agree, absolutely, yes. Exterior door installation, about 5 years ago, we spent about $300,000 on exterior door replacements. You know, what we've done over the course of the last 5 years, we've had some of our maintenance staff replace some. And as we've done some of the health, life, safety projects, we've added that in there. But we still have some doors that are sitting at CLA, and they're triple doors, and they're just too big for our staff to build. So we'd like to get those installed next summer. So we're doing an inventory right now. Luke and his staff are doing an inventory of that, so we'll get a bid out for that early next year. We're looking at CLA. I've got asbestos abatement and early childhood room. We have room needs because of just the increases in our early childhood program at CLA. I don't know what that will cost. We had STR and we had Tony Rossi looking at that today. So we'll come back to the board on that. There's asbestos under some floor tiles at CLA. And so we want to abate some of that in the back hallway. And there's also a sensory room that we want that we've got money for. But I need to pull out the carpet, and there's asbestos underneath the carpet. So the only way to do that is to do as a containment project on that. So I talked to Matt Warren. We can wait till next summer. So we'll do the asbestos abatement at the same time we do the childhood rooms once we get prices in on that. I don't know what that is, so I just left it as a blank. So anyway, looking at that right now, that's about almost $10 million on those projects alone. So what I did is I changed in 2021 the number from 3 million to 9.98, and that's even hard for me to read. So where we were looking at an ending fund balance in 23-24 of $60 million, we're going from 3 to 9.9, so it's an increase of about 6.9. So that makes sense that our fund balance will go down by 6.9. So if we do about $10 million of projects in the summer of 20, that gets our ending fund balance down to about 53 million.
51,106, I think.
50.
Yep.
51,106 in 2020, 2021.
Yep, 51,106, so 97.
Yes. This number right here, 53,217. Well, I'm looking all 5 years.
Oh, you're going
Oh,
at
you're
the
going
end.
5 years.
Yeah, I'm going all
Yeah.
5 years out, so we're at 53.2 as opposed to 60. So we're still we would still be we're at almost 31%, basically 31%. So we're still over the 25% threshold.
Yeah, but
Even doing that.
But you're looking at 3 million as the budget for 21,
Years moving
22.
forward.
Those years moving
22,
forward. Right, Lisa.
right, which I don't think based on our board perspective that
It's realistic.
Probably not realistic.
That's not realistic.
Yes, I realize that, yes.
Right, but it's a nice, clean, easy number that's been there for a long time.
For a long time, and then we can plan accordingly.
His replacement will feel better about it.
Yes.
Until he realizes it's, a low number.
About 9 million a year.
So, I mean, even if we spent outstanding life safety projects of about 110, even if we spent all the fund balance, which we would never do, that still only gets us about half of what's outstanding on the V items, so.
Yep.
Plus all the other items that still come up throughout as we look at with carpet and playgrounds and everything else that's out there as well.
Yep.
So, any questions?
Nope, all good. Everybody?
Mike, congratulations
Thank you.
on your last.
Probably my last one. Could be very much my last one, yes. Unless I do it in May, April, March.
Smiling so much.
I know.
Yeah, I tell him that
The Lord
every
tells
day.
me all the time,
I
she says,
literally
"Stop
tell him that
smiling
every
so
day.
We'll just keep coming him
You
back,
probably do. You
bringing
probably
him
do
back and asking
five-year
him
forecasts
questions.
at home all the time.
Oh, yeah.
We'd really like one more.
Yeah, 5-year forecast.
All right, okay, moving on, reading and acceptance of minutes, may I have a motion, please?
I make a motion to approve the minutes from the following meetings of the Board of Education, November 13, 2019, special Board of Education meeting and executive session.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Gator,
Aye.
Iannarino,
Aye.
Hunt,
Aye.
Khan,
Aye.
Shupai,
Aye.
Wong.
Aye.
Motion carries. Board committee reports. We'll start with the Ed Red organization, please, Frank.
Well, they're back in session. There's been some scandals down there, but besides that, there was the retirement or the planned retirement of the Senate President, so we'll be replacing him. But what's new is getting the competency tests reinstated for educators. So that was something I guess was inadvertently removed. So they put that back in. Let's see if there's anything else of interest to us. Yeah, most of the stuff is not really all that exciting this time around.
I don't know if you wanted to mention in terms of the resolution, Zubair or Frank, what passed at III, because we had a discussion about that.
Yeah, there were two separate measures that we had at least discussed here. There was obviously a lot of measures that were up, but so the I think it was resolution 1 dealing with the arming of teachers or other personnel in schools, whether or not that resolution did not pass. But the resolution 3 that basically allowed for the funding of I actually had the exact. There was a grant fund that was so that funding. Number 3 was a little different than number 1, and that just talked about the creation of a grant fund down the road to be able to use towards SRO officers in districts in which they could not afford SRO officers. So it was kind of like a compromise resolution that did pass by the whole body. The District 15 specifically voted against both of those, but the secondary one did pass.
All right, thank you. Any further discussion? All right, moving on to 1-5 Foundation. Mike obviously is not able to make it this evening as he is ill, but he did ask me to let everybody know that the 1-5 Foundation was very pleased with the success of the 529 50/50 raffle this past year, and they're planning on doing it again. He spoke with Pam today, and they are gearing up to begin setting the pieces in place to start moving that forward for the upcoming year.
If I could just piggyback and let everybody know, remember, there's blessings in a backpack. You can donate money to support the 154, or you can donate to bring flexible learning spaces to all of our LRCs. That's going to be a multi-year campaign. So if you're interested in contributing to either or both of those wishes from the district, there's information on the website. We have been also forwarding that information to all the different committees and community groups that we're talking to, hoping to look for greater sponsorship and support.
Perfect. All right, Finance Committee?
No new updates this month.
All right, Equity?
No, I have no updates this month.
All right, action items. Item 9.1, may I have a motion, please?
Make a motion to approve the December 11, 2019 personnel report with the following recommendations. 1, recommendation for a 2-day unpaid suspension and last chance agreement for Andrea Quartz, and recommendation for termination for Melanie Burke-Frank as presented.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Iannarino,
Aye.
Hunt,
Aye.
Khan,
Aye.
Shupai,
Aye.
Wong,
Aye.
Gator.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 9.2, motion please.
Make a motion to approve the staffing recommendation of the addition of a 5-hour server position to the Winston Campus Nutrition Services Kitchen as recommended.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? I thought it was amazing how the increase in the number of meals served by changing things around. And we didn't get a lot of the detail about what was changed, but just seeing the phenomenal impact of, it was amazing. Anybody else? Roll call.
Hunt,
Aye.
Khan,
Aye.
Shupai,
Aye.
Wong,
Aye.
Ader,
Aye.
and Reno.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 9.3, motion please.
I make a motion to approve the establishment of seasonal temporary positions as recommended.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Khan,
Aye.
Shupai,
Aye.
Wong,
Aye.
Ader,
Aye.
and Reno.
Aye.
Hunt.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 9.4, motion please.
I make a motion to approve the ESSA designation school improvement plan for Winston Campus Junior High, Thomas Jefferson Elementary School, Walter R. Sundling Junior High, and Carl Sandburg Junior High School as presented.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? I was a little confused on this.
Tom, did you want to come up and Robin?
Come on up. Just part of my confusion, Tom, was it appeared like they were plans from last year. But then is it planning for this coming year also, or?
We can clarify that.
That would be great. Thank you.
Okay. Now, before we start, however, all right, I've been waiting all night for this. So this is my colleague,
Robin Cook, hello. I oversee district improvement.
and I like to be referred to as Batman.
It would be my pleasure.
I think
You
Maurice
have
be
to
like,
say,
I'm
Batman,
going to
though.
talk with Tom tomorrow.
You got to say I'm Batman with the accent.
I was going to, but I couldn't bring myself to do the whole thing. So, the Shepherd's Hook. So the Every Student Succeeds Act is the accountability law that has been implemented by the federal government and adopted by all the states. And in 2017, Illinois implemented their plan, which was then felt in 2018, right? So 2018 is where we initially begin our story. And as we've talked about several times before, ESSA has taken a slightly different approach than its predecessor, the No Child Left Behind Act, right? And what it's done that has some similarity is it's had a focus on the equal outcomes of all student groups. So it makes sure that each school is held accountable to the performance of all of their students. But what it's done very differently than No Child Left Behind is taken a much broader look at what success means and all the different components and how they add up to determine if a group is indeed successful. It's a much more fair and holistic approach than what No Child Left Behind had provided for us in the past. And this is the main graph that the state provides that you've seen a few times that illustrates that. And when you look at this, it really broadly is broken down into three categories, right? Academic proficiency, so being able to pass on the grade level state test. Academic growth, the change from one year to the next in terms of how you've improved on these state tests. And then an idea of student engagement or connectedness, which is really coming to school and completing the school climate survey. So they look at this as really saying, are we engaging our students? Are they coming to school? Are they growing? And are they finally getting to a point where they're proficient and able to demonstrate that they're prepared for a college or career-ready trajectory, right? No Child Left Behind in the past only looked at proficiency. They didn't really look at, are we making improvements and are we better engaging our students? So a really nice improvement. So then in 2018, they applied this formula to all of our different schools, and this was the result, right? Every October, they release results, and for our first year, we had 2 exemplary schools. Those are schools that fall in the top 10% in Illinois on all those indicators combined. We had 13 commendable schools. Those are schools that fall somewhere between the top 10% and the lowest 5%, so a very wide band. And we had 4 schools that were identified as underperforming. And what that means is that they're a commendable school overall, yet they have 1 or more student groups that are performing past a certain threshold. They're not meeting state goals. And the way that the state, is kind of an unfortunate term, but I understand it, they describe the school as underperforming because they want the school to be accountable to all the groups, not just having an overall performance that on average is successful. Okay. So these are the different groups for those 4 schools that were identified as not performing at the state's goal standards for that year. So you can see it varies from 1 student group at Thomas Jefferson to 5 at Winston Campus Junior High. So with that, we were then asked by the state to engage in what's called a planning year. And a planning year is where we receive some money, a moderate amount, relatively small in terms of the scope of school work, but useful for planning opportunities. And we were required to engage in these main activities. We were required to engage in a data review, which we already do for all of our schools. We were required to engage in a quality assessment, which we also do. They use different tools that we had to use. And those 2 things had to be combined into what's called a work plan. And that work plan really is identifying how are we going to develop our staff to address these achievement problems differently, and how are we going to engage our staff to look at school-based activities that are also associated with improving the performance of these targeted groups and the students overall. All right, so it's a lot of planning of how can we better prime and prepare our existing staff, right, and structures to have a different impact than what we are currently having. So these are some of the things we did. We implemented some professional development and coaching for more inclusive practices and universal design so that students with disabilities could be better fit and instructed within general education classrooms. How can we make sure that they are receiving grade appropriate education with powerful instructional strategies? We added money to the culturally and linguistically responsive teaching training, providing some advanced training that was not yet available to our schools through those additional funds for a couple targeted teachers at Winston Campus Junior High and a few others. We looked to supplement the math curriculum at the junior high. Math was more implicated than reading across our schools, and so we looked to supplement with highly rigorous materials that really were much more engaging through the methodology they employ, and we purchased professional development that went along with those materials. And we finally engaged our teachers and paid them to do work over the summer with that extra money. So, of course, teachers, don't work over the summer, but we were able to use some of these funds to have our building leaders work with them to develop plans to implement this year around instruction, student engagement, and especially attendance. Attendance tends to be something that can be difficult for some of our student groups, especially at the junior high level in each of the schools. Worked with their staff to identify ways that they could improve and target certain families and improve attendance with that, right? So that was a lot of our planning work. So we implemented many of those things last year, and then you can see the change from last year to this year, right? We went from 2 exemplary schools, we stayed at 2 exemplary schools. We went from 13 commendable schools to 16, from 4 underperforming schools to 1, and 0 lowest performing. So there's been an impact, right? There's been an impact. However, when we are, when our schools were identified in 2018, regardless of their change or their impact, the state says there's a 3-year mandatory engagement period where we have to implement plans from last year that fall into this year and move forward in terms of monitoring. And they call that hold harmless, meaning that even though our schools have improved and some of these groups have dropped off, we still receive some nominal funding, and they still ask to make sure that we have monitoring plans. And part of that is presenting improvement plans to the board, because I can imagine there are many schools or school districts that are less regulated that might not develop that plan. So this is their accountability structure to make sure that we used the money, engaged our staff, and did something with it. And this is part of that. So these are the changes. Even though we have 1 school remaining, Winston Campus Junior Highs are 1 school remaining, you can see that there's still been a noticeable impact. We went from 5 schools or 5 student groups that were identified down to 2, right? So even with our one school, and of course it had the most groups identified at first, there's been a real move forward. And one thing that I think is really worth noting is that there's been a real particular partnership, and this is a unique one. Many of the focuses have been academic or attendance for our schools. Winston campus has really worked very hard on its climate and student connectedness. And there's been a palatable change. There's a lot of indicators that really have produced that. And Martine and his team had presented earlier this year on some of the things they've done. And it's really a appreciated thing. They have thanked the people that have helped them, and they've recognized the hard work that they've done. And it's really produced some important things that have been very positive for that student body and teaching staff.
Nice job, Martine.
Yeah.
Nice job, Winston.
Yep.
The way I look at it too is you said there were some schools that had 1 or 2 categories that are gone.
Yep.
Winston got rid of 3.
Yep.
So the other way to look at it is they got rid of 3, so they closed the gap in more.
Yeah, we're really hoping that as leaders of this process and as partners with us, that those flashing pens are coming our way. But we're gonna see. So,
all right,
I think with the next year it can even move further. So
I don't think there's room on that utility belt.
I think
exactly right.
Robin,
Yes.
Robin will get hers, but
Yes.
I don't know.
Yes.
I don't know about that. I mean, it really doesn't go with the outfit.
We're having to sit through that joke.
I know. I am a dad, so I guess there is a little
Earn that.
forgiveness with that. Hopefully, my family's not watching this.
This is every day. It's every day.
Yeah, pretty much every day. Yes.
After that joke, you have to give us light up.
Right. Exactly. One thing, just to be some truth in advertising, there are 2 factors that are related to this change. So, we did have a real increase in the amount of growth that our students displayed last year in the academic areas, and growth is the primary mover in the ESSA metric. So that really was positive, and that impacted many students. But we also had a structural change imposed by ISB. Now, in years past, No Child Left Behind and whatnot, all students were associated with their home school. And this is especially relevant for students with IEPs who might move from one school to another based upon particular programming that they require that just doesn't happen to be available at their school. And the logic behind it was that there really can't be an incentive by the government to make a school able to move their children away from themselves into some other programming. We can't get rid of students with challenges in order to appear more successful. They can't incentivize that. And so the move has been, no matter where a child is educated, the home school is considered still responsible for the quality and impact of that education, right? And so the first year, the 2017 application of this resulting in our 2018 results, the state had used serving school for its student designations, right? And what that does is it produces schools that have a high number of special education programs. It collapses all those results, our most challenged students very often, into a small school. So a school like Thomas Jefferson, where they're a small school anyway, who has new self-contained programs, it can be a meaningful impact. The state changed that back to what it had historically been, which is homeschool designations. Now, if we go back and look, you can see that that might have had an impact on a couple schools, but that's not a prominent group throughout the metric, and that's why growth, of course, is something that we emphasize first as being the positive, part that really moved us forward into this year. Okay. All right, now my sidekick Robin. Change the utility value. All right. Okay. Stop now. Yeah. Well, in fact, I'll move this over so you can.
No, you're fine. So to follow the model that ISB is requiring, the comment that was made earlier of why are these schools having to continually do these work plans? So we're still receiving funds and still having to submit plans because ISB has a good model that focuses on growth. The requirements are going to increase as the years go on, and so they want to look at sustainability for some of these schools that have been flagged in the past and make sure that they're moving on and progressing in growth as well, just as we're asking students to grow. So some of the requirements that come along with that is that they have to have these plans approved by the board, and they also have to have their plans submitted to ISB following some of these requirements that we're going to talk about here very briefly. All the plans that you see in front of you have to follow 3 parameters based on the state. They have to have pieces that tie to academic. All of these parallel our own school improvement plans, so this wasn't a big jump for a lot of our schools. It was really just formalizing some of the language and having to submit it to the state's formal website. So we have goals around academic proficiency and growth, things like school quality, things that Dr. Edgar already talked about, school climate, and then they will submit a framework that's through the state that has to do with collaboration and systems within the school that support improvement. So some of the themes for our schools here in the district, and specifically the 4 schools that we're talking about today, a lot of the academic goals are around intellectual engagement, which parallels some of the things we already talked about today, even with our second language program, right? Having high quality engagement for students so that they can access high quality materials and content in instruction in the classroom. And also improving climate. A lot of that work's been through addressing attendance issues at our school, making sure that kids are here so that they can be engaged in quality content and instruction. And the Illinois Quality Framework has to do a lot, again, with collaborative work. So not just collaborative work at the school, but as a district, how are we collaborating and working with you? How is the administration supporting collaboration, and how are teachers collaborating together to best serve our students? And so some of the things that were in the previous plans that we talked about at the beginning of the presentation, that work is still continuing. So we still have some of the inclusive practice and universal design pieces going through. Some new things that we're talking about have to do with formative assessment that's also connected to formative assessment that's in the strategic plan. We are also, Martine presented earlier in the year, some of the reorganization that's happening at their school tied to engagement and connectedness. That's a common theme that you see across the schools in the district. They really see the value in that, and a lot of the rubric is circled around that, and a lot of our work is connected to that as well. So some of the supports that we're providing related to that is professional learning. We're doing a lot of partnership with the Office of Teaching and Learning, especially with our math professional development, because we have a big deficit in our district related to math. So trying to align our efforts there. We're also toying with the idea with our redesign of MTSS with common team time, trying to figure out how we can get collaboration happening in connection to that rubric, and using that time connected to the use of formative assessments and how that can inform our instruction for students. We're also doing a lot of principal coaching, professional learning for our admin. This is the first year that we had an organized scope and sequence for our APs and our building admin around instruction and climate and what that looks like, and aligning all of our efforts across our central office. And we're also in the process of developing an instructional framework that is also laid out in our strategic plan in partnership with teaching and learning as well. So, some of our next steps. Hopefully you approve the plans. Then we will hit the submit button for ISB, and then we will continue to use our funds in some of these efforts.
Yeah, just a positive note. Well, I think it's always important to recognize people's strengths. Robin has done a terrific job bringing a new level of professional development to, I think, both our teachers, but especially our leaders, on how to really make sure that students are engaged well in the classroom with methods that anybody can use in any class regardless of diversity. So it's been really positive. I said it many times publicly, I'll say it to you, that I just think it's taken us to the next level. And I'm really excited about how this is going to impact our students and staff over the next several years. So thank you.
Thank you. Almost makes up for the joke.
Although she didn't call me. I know, yeah, I'll just drop it. I won't even pursue it. But questions that you have, what can we answer?
I can appreciate the 3-year, because I think you can make improvements in 1 year, but to have sustained, impactful improvement over time, you have to stick with it long enough for it really to hold. So,
yeah, that's a good move. The state really has thought it out more so than I've seen in the past in terms of their framework and what they're asking us for. The downside is they asked us to present plans for you to approve, but didn't give us a way of printing them out. So we had to, of course, copy and paste so that you could see the meat of what they're asked to do. But their plans are in electronic format that they put in, but we couldn't figure out how to get the stupid things out of the system. So maybe that'll be their next step.
You can suggest.
Yeah, that's my suggestion. All right, well.
Anybody else?
No, this is really helpful.
Thank you. Yeah, we appreciate it.
Thank you very much. And thank you to all the schools that made a difference and
Yeah.
helped to get themselves off of that list is great. And there's no doubt that Winston Campus Junior High on its way, Martina. There's zero doubt in my mind you'll make it happen.
Yeah. I will say that we were in his office, and there's a SRO who who subs when his regular SRO is out, and this guy had been in for several years, and he, in an unsolicited way, said, you know, this is a school that I don't know I would have wanted to work in before, but now I really do. You know, just you see those things, so it's powerful stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Difference
Thank you.
maker.
Have a nice night.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye, Robin.
Batman says, you know, have a Val Kilmer maybe is, you know.
I'm just glad he didn't bring the mask.
Yeah.
All right, any further discussion? Roll call?
Shupai?
Aye.
Wong?
Aye.
Ader?
Aye.
Andorino?
Aye.
Hunt?
Aye.
Khan?
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 9.5, motion please.
Make a motion to approve the Certificate of Compliance with Truth in Taxation Law, Certificate of Tax Levy, Resolution authorizing special education levy, Resolution authorizing reduction of certain funds levies for the 2019 levy year, and the resolution authorizing final aggregate levy for the year 2019 as presented.
Second.
Second.
Discussion? Thank you, Corey, for doing the work on this. We appreciate it. Anybody else? Questions? Roll call?
Shupai?
Aye.
Wong?
Aye.
Ader?
Aye.
Andorino?
Aye.
Hunt?
Aye.
Khan?
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 9.6, motion please.
I make a motion to award the contract for the Jane Addams roof replacement 20-010, including the base bid and bid alternate 1 to Stuckey Construction Company of Waukegan, Illinois, for a total bid award amount of $1,611,000 as recommended. It is noted that the lowest bidder asked to be excused due to errors they made while calculating their lump sum total, and the second lowest bidder submitted an incomplete bid and had inadequate coverage for mechanical systems.
Second.
Second.
Discussion? Everyone feels good with the bid? Mike?
Yeah, we
The Stuckey bid?
talked with SDR twice or 3 times on it, and we talked about it again this morning, so yes, we're comfortable with the recommendation.
All right. Roll call?
Wong?
Aye.
Ader?
Aye.
Andorino?
Aye.
Hunt?
Aye.
Khan?
Aye.
Shupai?
Aye. Motion carries. Item 9.7, motion please.
I make a motion to approve the revised 2020-21 revised official school calendar as presented.
Second.
Second.
Discussion?
Can you highlight the changes? Just Lisa. Okay.
Inadvertently, August 31st was left off of the entire calendar, so we were off by a day. So we put August 31st back.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted
And adjusted the end.
It's funny, that was the impression I got from reading it, but I wasn't sure that.
That's exactly what it was.
All right, well, I'm
Thank
glad
you.
August 31st is back.
You're welcome.
Pretty good day.
I'm gonna enjoy that extra day next year. Let me see, roll call.
Ader?
Aye.
Andorino?
Aye.
Hunt?
Aye.
Khan?
Aye.
Shupai?
Aye.
Wong?
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 9.8, motion please.
Make a motion to approve the draft 2021-22 official, oh my gosh, I'm on the wrong one. I make a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented.
No.
No, you were
No, I'm on the right one.
Right first.
All right, retract that again. I make a motion to approve the draft 2021-22 official school calendar as presented.
Second.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Andorino?
Aye.
Hunt?
Aye.
Khan?
Aye.
Shupai?
Aye.
Wong?
Aye.
Ader?
Aye.
Motion carries. Would anyone like to remove anything from the consent calendar?
August 31st?
If not, may I have a motion, please?
I'm gonna go ahead and, I'll do this one. I make a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented.
Second?
Second.
Roll call?
Hunt,
Aye.
Con,
Aye.
Shupai,
Aye.
Wong,
Aye.
Ader,
Aye.
Andreino.
Aye.
Motion carries. Correspondence, Dr. Hines?
In the packet, per usual, we have any FOIAs that we've received. Do you have any questions about what has been included? Let me get to that page. No?
No.
No? Okay.
No. I don't, I actually kind of have a question.
Okay.
Is the, so the news person that asked for the vaping information,
Mhm.
were they just looking for how many children have been disciplined for
think-
vaping-related issues at school?
I believe they're writing a big story on vaping, and they're checking with all local districts to see what our data looks like, to see how pervasive it is, if it's different in certain areas, and then what level of discipline we're assigning. We're waiting on that article, but they have blanketed that request to all local districts.
I believe there's a bill in Congress that focusing on vaping now. I think the local congressman has been behind it as well, Krishnamurthy, so maybe that's why there's an interest.
Could be.
Yep. All right. Adjournment, may I have a motion to adjourn, please?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
Let the record